say what they think and for the rest of us to hear it.
Welcome to my YouTube channel, the TV Reality Show. Yesterday, I was checking on Douglas Murray confronts Muslim on terrorism. We don't need Islam. Douglas Murray confronts Muslim on terrorism. Wow. I don't know how it's going to be, because actually, I don't know who this Douglas. Today is my first time of coming across his video. So let's go to the video.
Across the board.
Let's bring Douglas back in. Douglas, wait.
I find it a little. I find it a little bit strange that he should deign to call himself, brazenly call himself or at least imply he's some kind of champion for free speech or free expression.
Look, I've probably got to answer that. You'll have noticed, and all of your viewers will have noticed, that this Islamist lunatic in your studio can't answer the basic question. Let's try it again and make it simple for you. Why don't you say whether or not you are completely condemning of any violence against Salman Rushdie or anyone else who is deemed to have said something heretical? Why don't we start with the basics for you?
Welcome to Douglas Murray Speaks, where we showcase the best of Douglas Murray spitting facts and taking names. Strap yourself in and get ready as he lays waste to the obfuscations of a, as Douglas puts it, Islamic lunatic. Watch Douglas pursue him mercilessly as he attempts to downplay and dodge the issue of the horrific attack on Salman Rushdie in August of 2022, in which Rushdie was stabbed no fewer than 15 times by a deranged Islamic extremist with links to the Iranian regime. Next, Douglas provides the background to the case and how it exemplifies the West's slow but steady capitulation to the forces of Islamicism and intolerance.
When the Ayatollah called for the murder of Salman Rushdie, people on the left and right of British politics and of British culture made excuses for the fatwa. I'm sure we'll hear some excuses today. They learned, our societies learned, that if somebody says, I'm offended, and then says, and as a result, I'm going to kill, you better be damn sure that you're willing to die for that. And unfortunately, the success of the Ayatollah's fatwa, among other things, is that it showed a load of other disgruntled people what they could do if they only had the disgustingness to think that they could exercise violence as an opposition to the pen. And I'm afraid that what happened, as I say, is that Muslim extremists across the UK and across the world showed they could intimidate people, and others undoubtedly have learned from this. But let's remember, Britain in 1989, we allowed Muslims in Bradford to burn the Quran, the satanic verses on the streets of Britain. We allowed prominent figures like Cat Stevens to excuse the murder of Salman Rushdie on the television. We allowed Iranian officials who had called for Rushdie's murder to live in London. Like, how stupid are we?
Back to Douglas in a sec. As Douglas rightly points out, the Rushdie affair, back in 1989, was the first wake-up call that Islamic extremism was now firmly embedded in the West. But rather than waking up and taking the required action, our leaders closed their eyes and hoped it would all go away by pandering to the Muslim community. How would the West be different now if our political elites had dealt with the Rushdie affair as they should have way back then? Next, Douglas's Muslim opponent does everything he can to avoid answering a simple question so as not to expose himself as a shameless supporter of terrorist violence.
The Iranian government over the weekend said Rushdie was to blame for being attacked. That is completely and utterly despicable, isn't it?
Well, firstly, I find it rather strange that Douglas Murray, who's had a history of advocating for restrictions on Muslim speakers at universities...
But you can answer my question. Do you think it's despicable that the Iranian government have said that he took it on himself? He was stabbed in broad daylight. Do you find that despicable?
But if I may, he deigns to say he's a champion for free speech, so to speak, but yet his organisation argued for restrictions on, for platforms for Muslim speakers going to universities. He wanted to ban the burqa in public buildings and a kind of social ban on it in public. So for him, and argued that conditions for Muslims in Europe must be made harder across the board.
Let's bring Douglas back in. Douglas, wait.
I find it a little. I find it a little bit strange that he should deign to call himself, brazenly call himself or at least imply he's some kind of champion for free speech of free expression?
Look, I've probably got to answer that. You'll have noticed, and all of your viewers will have noticed, that this Islamist lunatic in your studio can't answer the basic question.
Back to Douglas shortly. Talk about dodging the question. Whether he supports the Islamic Republic of Iran isn't really the point here. The point is, why is it that when any Muslim is faced with even the slightest criticism of the actions of other Muslims or the teachings of the Quran, they all close ranks and refuse to admit the problem? Can a community incapable of self-criticism ever really integrate into Western liberal democratic societies in which open-mindedness and the ability to change one's mind are core intrinsic values? Next, we see Douglas finally take off the gloves and lay into this lunatic with the contempt he deserves.
Isn't the whole basis of the Western system based on people's free will?
Do you believe that man would have gone and stabbed Salman Rushdie unless he had been encouraged, incentivized, galvanized, whatever words you want, from people, the Iranian government, who say Salman Rushdie is to blame on putting a fatwa on his head?
The only person to blame for the knifing of Salman Rushdie is the assailant himself.
Not the Iranian regime who put the fatwa on him in the first place.
Well, unless you can demonstrate that they were specifically colluding or they sent an agent.
They said he was to blame.
He was in communication with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
That's their opinion, right? But I'm only here to talk about, if you're asking me who's to blame, I say the assailant, much like Douglas Murray said that the Christchurch killer, the one who massacred the Muslims in the mosque, only the killer was to blame, not those who radicalized him into viewing Muslims as a threat to the West.
What you'll find is that if somebody put millions of dollars on someone's head, yours, for instance, or mine, and somebody then attacked us, you would think that the person who had put millions of dollars on our head would bear some responsibility. But because you're such a dishonest weasel, you're not even willing to do that. You're not even willing to do the basic thing of condemning the attack.
Sticks and stones, Douglas Murray, sticks and stones.
Why don't we
You need to demonstrate that the person was motivated by the reward.
We'll be returning to Douglas shortly. Really incredible to see such a wanton display of stupidity here. If I offer to pay a hitman $1 million to kill someone, am I not fully culpable for that person's murder? No person can be this naive. Is there some underlying motive for him to refuse to own up to the reality of the situation? Is the Islamic concept of taqiyya, or lying to non-Muslims as a means of furthering the aims of Islam, at play here? Finally, Douglas steps up to the plate and shows us the only sane way to approach issues such as this: to stand up, without compromise, for the values that make the West what it is.
Is there any limit to free speech? And I'm rather disturbed we're still discussing this. It's 3 decades or more since the Satanic Verses affair. It was in 1989 that the Ayatollah Khomeini did the unpardonable, unforgivable thing of calling for the murder of a British novelist for the crime of writing a novel. And we had these debates back then. Where are the limits to free speech? Has Mr. Rushdie committed a crime as well as the Ayatollah? And a lot more guff like that. I'm rather disturbed that in all of the decades since, with all of the people who've been killed for asserting their right to free speech, or asserting their right to say what they think and for the rest of us to hear it, but we're still at this elementary playground level of discussion. I'm sorry to say that, but this is a long, long answered question. Our societies have perfectly good incitement laws in place. The rest of it, I'm sorry, no, we're not adapting our own speech codes. We're not going to make ourselves more sensitive to people who famously burn books that they can't even read. I mean, the Ayatollah Khomeini had never even read the Satanic Verses when he asked for Muslims around the world to kill Salman Rushdie. It's an unpardonable thing that has happened. It is extraordinary to me that we're still having this discussion. Mm-hmm. We had the same discussion 7 years ago when the cartoonists of Charlie Hebdo were being murdered. We had the same discussion in all of these decades, and it's Muslims and non-Muslims who've been attacked. And we in the West still have this pathetic discussion about, oh, what are the limits of free speech? Really, we've got to get better than that.
If you enjoyed this look into the mind of Douglas Murray, please hit the like button. Give us your thoughts on the issues discussed in this video in the comments. And for more Murray content coming soon, don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe. Yes, guys. In a bit with what he has already said, how can you say that someone caused a red line and you killed him because he insulted the person, he or she insulted a Muslim, and you kill him, and you want me to accept Islam? No, no, that is not right. I can say that is not right. You cannot kill. Okay. If your God cannot fight for himself, who are you to fight for your God? You cannot fight for your God. Yes, because God is capable of fighting for himself, not you as a human. I don't know why Muslims are fond of causing havoc everywhere. I don't know. I was even thinking that it is only in Africa, they said, because I remember a news from Nigeria, one Deborah somebody, they killed him, and when we asked why, they said the girl crossed a red line by insulting a Muhammad. Wow. How? That is all. So I don't know why is it. Can somebody correct this impression of he has crossed a red line? What is the red line that a human being will cross and you went and kill him? No, I don't believe in that. That is why I'm a Christian and we believe that God fight for himself. You cannot fight for your God. So guys, I want to know what you think about this the voting. Do you think that it is good to kill human because he has insulted one particular religion? Let me see it on comment section. And don't forget to subscribe for my YouTube channel for more videos like this. See you next time. Bye.